President Trump back in the White House tonight after the Thanksgiving holiday. He just tweeted that this is a big week coming up for tax cuts. The Republican tax bill, the president tweeted, there you are, is getting better and better, and the end result will be great for all, he says. Indeed, the plan promises to raise middle-class wages by lowering the tax rate on the companies they work for. That, say GOP leaders, will save companies money to pay people more. The president says that a typical household will see a $4,000 raise if the plan goes through. But some labor groups are afraid companies won't invest tax savings in middle-class wages, but instead pad the pockets of their shareholders. Jody Calemine, General Counsel for the Communication Workers of America, joins us now. Jody, thank you very much for joining us on this holiday weekend. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Now, your union did something very interesting last week, and I'd love you to just explain what it was in terms of trying to take this GOP promise of the tax bill leading to higher wages and try and make it a bit tangible. Just tell us what you did.
Well, it was on Monday. We're a labor union, so what we do for a living is we negotiate wages for workers, increases in wages. And so when we heard the White House say that by cutting the corporate tax rate to 20%, that workers would get, on average, a $4,000 wage increase, we reacted in a logical fashion. We sent a letter to 8 of our key employers, and attached to that letter was a contract proposal. Under that contract proposal, it says if the corporate tax rate is reduced to 20%, every employee in our bargaining unit will receive a $4,000 wage increase. This is something entirely in the company's control. The White House is saying, and congressional leaders are saying, that if this tax rate were to take effect, this is what would happen. So we just want that promise in writing. We want it binding in a binding agreement.
I think it's just a very creative response to and turning a usual kind of political promise into something that actually means something real for working people. Just tell us give us an example of the companies that you wrote to.
Well, they're household names, really. AT&T, Verizon, General Electric, American Airlines, ABC, NBC, Frontier, CenturyLink. Those are some of our key employers in the industries where we represent a lot of workers, telecommunications, airlines, broadcast, some manufacturing.
So I think I can predict the answer to this question, but did you get any response?
We have not yet. There's been no official response from any of these companies. We did see a New York Times article about our letter. It appears in that article that at least one or other companies are calling this a stunt. It is not a stunt. It is very serious. It is the White House that is promising all workers this $4,000 wage increase. All we're doing is asking for that promise to be put in writing and signed. It's not a stunt.
So let's just take the big criticism that could be leveled at this. I'd like your response on it, which is, okay, we may agree that what you're talking about there is completely consistent with the political promise that has been made. But when it comes to actually running a business, you can't just expect companies to make a sort of blanket pledge like that across the board and going into the future. What do you think about that point?
Well, that is, in fact, not consistent with what the White House is telling the American people. According to the White House, if this corporate tax rate is reduced to 20%, everybody's getting a $4,000 boost in their income. So we live in the real world. We negotiate wages. We know that you don't get anything without asking for it, without negotiating for it. That's what we're attempting to do right now. In fact, this is something that, frankly, every worker in the United States could be doing right now. You don't necessarily have to have a union. You could be a non-union worker. Tomorrow morning, you could go into your boss's office with an agreement waiting for his signature that says, if the corporate tax rate's reduced to 20%, you will raise my pay by $4,000. The White House says this is what will happen. We're frankly a little skeptical that that's how this will work. We've seen trickle down before. It doesn't exactly work that way at all. Most of this money will end up in shareholders and executives' pockets. But we want them to put their money where their mouth is.
Well, I think it's a great way of focusing everyone's attention on that exact point. And on this show, we will always champion the working Americans, and this issue of stagnant wages is incredibly serious for millions of people, including our viewers. Jody, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.